the retail inflation or the consumer price index has shot up to over 6% plus for the fifth month in a row. This steep rise in inflation is a bit confusing when there is a widespread demand destruction post the COVID lockdown. While the food prices, which have over half the share in the CPI basket, is the main culprit, the inflationary expectation in the economy are also on the rise. So what should be the strategy to keep the inflation in check when the pandemic is still raging? First and foremost, the government and the state government should protect the agri supply chain. The RBI has to keep the finance channel well-oiled for farmers, traders, food processing units and logistic providers. Timely action is required by the government wherever there is a spike in food prices. The RBI should also use the foreign exchange strategy to keep a check on the imported inflation. And finally, there is a need for managing the surplus liquidity in the system. Let us discuss each of these elements in detail. The virus infection is now spreading into the semi-urban and the rural areas. These are the areas where the country's agri supply chain lies. The impact of pandemic is expected to remain for the next 9 to 12 months if there is no effective vaccine. And any breakdown in the supply will be more severe than the demand shock. With no primary healthcare facility in rural India, the virus has the potential to disrupt both the agriculture production and the agri supply chain, which could create a sudden spike in inflation. The learnings of COVID outbreak in metros and heavily infected states like Maharashtra, Delhi and Kerala should be documented to create a plan for containing virus in semi-urban and rural areas. The government as well as the RBI has to keep the finance channel well-oiled. In the past, farm loan waiver, which were more political, and the subsidized crop insurance scheme did help farmers, but the current pandemic is actually the right time to provide support to farmers. The RBI should take steps to repair the broken NBFC channel post-COVID, which is a major source of funding in the agri areas. Similarly, the MSMEs are another huge segment working in the agri space. The MSMEs impacted by COVID is another weak link in the agri chain. The RBI recently revised its priority sector guidelines for banks to increase credit to small and marginal farmer and also to boost healthcare infrastructure. This is a good proactive step but needs monitoring by the RBI. The future lending to agri and healthcare sector should align to the emerging national priorities post the COVID pandemic. Timely action by the government is required wherever there is a spike in prices or instances of hoarding and black marketeering. The government had recently banned the export of onions because of a rise in the prices both in the wholesale and retail market. The farmers' community has criticized this government action as they are deprived of the high prices. Every action will have some collateral damage. Given the current situation, keeping inflation low should be the top priority. The government should also have a ready plan to import agricultural commodities if there is a shortage in the near future. In the past, the government had reduced import duties to bring onions from countries like Pakistan and Egypt. The RBI for the first time has gone on record to say that the recent appreciation of rupee is working towards containing imported inflation. An appreciating rupee will lower the cost of oil imports and also the imports of essential raw material at a time when the global supply chain are disrupted because of COVID and a hostile China. There is also a flood of liquidity in the domestic market which could fuel inflation in the near future. The global liquidity is also moving to emerging markets like India, especially in equities and gold. In the current subdued demand, the money multiplier is weak, but the impact of surplus liquidity could surprise as it happened in the post-2008 global financial crisis when the China and India also get impacted. The government and the RBI needs to work in tandem to have a comprehensive inflation strategy for the medium term to reduce any adverse impact of pandemic which is still raging in India.